We're glad to have our good friend Rabbi Daniel Lapin on the phone with us to be part of the program today. Rabbi, are you there?
Good morning. Thank you. Yes, I am, because everybody needs a rabbi.
That's exactly right. And we're talking with Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He is known worldwide as America's rabbi. He is a scholar. He's an author. He's a speaker. And he is he founded the Alliance of the American Alliance of Jews and Christians to defend Judeo-Christian values here in our country. Rabbi, we are so glad to have you with us here on today's issues.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a real kick to be back with you again. It's been a while.
Tim and Ray, Rabbi, so that's who you're talking to.
Yes, I know.
I'm Tim. He's Ray. And I want to ask you this: Do you currently serve a congregation?
No, the congregation I started with Michael Medved in California a number of years ago. I served until I began to get involved in Jewish Christian issues, and at that point I became the head of the American Alliance of Jews and Christians, and that is primarily my ministry, which consists today of making ancient Jewish wisdom accessible to people of every background. And
how do you do that? Because you're talking two different religions.
Yeah, well, the way it is, I mean, first of all, look, I think the key thing that we all agree on is something very fundamental, which is that the Bible is God's message to mankind. Right?
Yes. Yeah, we're with you.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure I'm on the right show.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you are.
Preach on.
I mean, I say that because obviously a certain percentage of people in the United States of America at the moment do not go with that formulation. Whatever the Bible is, it's not God's message to mankind. And so that's the sort of major cultural dividing line, a canyon that cuts through the culture. But you say, how does this work? Well, the way it works is that, for instance, everybody recognizes. I mean, you'd have to have been a recent immigrant from outer Mongolia not to know that Jews are disproportionately good with money. Now, I'm allowed to say that because I'm circumcised, so watch out. And,
all right, brother, we're silent here. just for those who are listening from Right Wing Watch and all these other groups.
That's right.
The Christian brothers have not said a word
about Rabbi. It's all
about
yours.
the rabbi's caricature of his people.
Yeah, the Christian brothers are quiet on this one.
Yes, we are.
That's right.
Shocked.
Yes.
But that is a reality. It's not to say that there are no poor Jews. Of course there are, but one would have to be an idiot to ignore the fact that on the Forbes 400 list, instead of what the demographic projection should be, namely 8 or 9 Jews, there's usually between 60 and 100 Jews. Now, that tells you something. Now, what does it tell you? That you've got to be circumcised if you want to make money? No. That you've got to eat chicken soup and bagels if you want to make money? No, absolutely not. What it tells you is that there is a vast body of information, a massive collection of tips and tools and techniques in ancient Jewish wisdom and the Lord's language that Jews have used for centuries in many, many different environments in order to succeed, in order to do well financially. And my job, and that's one of the reasons that my website is called ancientjewishwisdom.com. My job is to make that available and accessible to everybody, and I did that, first of all, primarily in a financial area, because, as you know, without bread, we're told, without bread, there's nothing. And bread is a metaphor for money in the Bible. Anywhere it says bread means money. That's why we also have the metaphor of dough, like, can you lend me some dough? That comes from the biblical idea that bread is a metaphor for money. And the idea, of course, is that that's a starting point. And there's an enormous amount of key information on this, which resulted in my best-selling book, Thou Shalt Prosper, in which I compressed hundreds and hundreds of the most important tips and tools for increasing one's earning power into 10 fundamental skills, 10 fundamental strategies for people to absorb. And And it's really important to understand that this is not about praying to God for a Ferrari.
Right.
Right.
That's not what this is all about, and that's never been the Jewish way. Now, you can pray to God for a Ferrari if you like. He'll probably say no, but that's not the issue. The issue is understanding what money is,
Right.
and understanding that above all, what God wants. And if you think about it, it's His earliest statement to humanity: not good for man to be alone.
Absolutely.
Now, a lot of people think that applies only to Adam's matrimonial prospects because Eve comes along pretty soon after that. But when God says not good for man to be alone, that's a statement for all times and all places. God wants us to be connected with one another. And it's not an accident that Malcolm Gladwell's popular book, The Tipping Point, shows that one of the most reliable things to recognize about successful people is not that they're brilliant and have super high IQs. You know, Sam Walton was just an ordinary sort of guy, but people who make money are very well connected to other people. Doesn't mean to important people or to rich people, just to a lot of people. And so that is part of what God wants us to do. When I have one of my principles in the book is never retire. That is because, right, you guys know that William Bradford, the second governor of the Plymouth colony, was fluent in Hebrew, right? You knew that.
Yes.
And Ezra Stiles, the president of Yale University, and one of the great colonial preachers, Cotton Mather, these guys all knew Hebrew very, very well indeed. They would have known that in the Lord's language there is no word for retire. So,
Really?
you know, I don't know what sort of dreams lurk in the back of your minds, Tim. I have no idea. I hope you're not thinking of retirement, but if you are, it's not in accordance with the plan. There is no word for retire.
No, I'm thinking of a bread line in about 10 years.
That's the way things are going. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
I'm
that.
thinking when this whole thing goes down, I'll be healthy enough to stand there and wait on my bread.
But Rabbi, what you've just said in a way is counterintuitive in terms of our culture. It's work for 20 years, work for 30 years, get your Social Security, move to Florida, move to Arizona, you know, and just kick back and spend the golden years playing golf and fishing and so on.
Yeah,
What's wrong with that? I thought that was the American ideal.
And you're exactly right. And one of the great things about our deteriorating culture is that it now serves as a very good compass. Whatever it does, go the other way. And the reason for that is that, and I think most people are familiar with this with friends and family, people who retire tend to go downhill health-wise.
Yes.
Very, very common. And there's a reason for that. Basically, what you're saying to God is, you know what, I've got enough. I'm taking my toys and going home. If you're not existing to serve people anymore, then who needs you? And that's part of what's wrong with the goal of retirement implies that work is selfish. And I want to stress what I deal with, what I teach, is, whether it's on my website or whether it's in my book, what I'm teaching is that you've got to have the right approach. You know, in 1954, Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay got to the top of Everest. Since then, not hundreds but thousands of people have got up Everest. There's a littering problem. There's snicker wrappers all up and down the mountain. They don't know what to do with it. It's absolutely true. And my question is, why is it that it's apparently not that hard to go up Mount Everest? Lots and lots and lots of people have done it. I'm not saying I could, but lots of people do it. And yet nobody did it before May 1954. And the answer is that until that point, nobody believed that it could be done. The attitude we have towards something really impacts our capacity to perform enormously. And so as long as you go into business, you go into the process of making money on a selfish way, in other words, how do I get more money, then you're leading a frustrating and unnecessarily difficult life. The ancient Jewish wisdom approach is to say not, dear God, please give me some more money, but it's, dear God, please lead me to more of your children that I can serve. It's one of the reasons customer service and worship service use the same word. Because one of the ways of worshiping God is by taking care of his other children. And now somebody might say, well, come on, look, I mean, I know why you're working. You're working because you want to get paid at the end of the week. Yeah, that may be true. But at the same time, I am doing something for you. And we Americans always used to understand this when Judeo-Christian values were more central in our consciousness and in our culture. We used to understand that. It's one of the reasons we tip people. Right? Most of us check out of a hotel, leave some money for the housekeeping on the counter. Why? She gets paid because we realize that in addition to getting paid, she made that room a welcoming haven after a grueling bit of travel. I came in there, and that becomes incredibly important to understand, that service is the key to making money, not selfishness.
Rabbi, suppose somebody is, let's not say 60 or 65, let's move it back maybe 10 or 15 years, but let's say somebody is 45 or 50, they're in the heart of their career, and they've been taught, as I suppose most Americans have, work till you're 65 and then go to the beach. If they begin to approach this in a more biblical framework, how's that going to impact their, quote, life planning, career planning? They're mid-career, but they've got 15 or 20 years, then they're going to hit 65. What should they be thinking about?
So, the key thing to understand is that what I'm teaching is not about how to invest. There's lots of wonderful books about that. I'm not teaching how to get out of debt. It's terribly important, and if you're in debt, you should contact my good friend Dave Ramsey, because it's important. But what I'm talking about is increasing revenue. And here is the answer to your excellent question. I joke about playing golf in retirement. The truth is I'm a bit of an ignoramus. I actually don't know much about golf at all. But one thing I do know is that everybody tells you how important your swing is. Mm-hmm. And people practice the swing over and over and over again. And they look at videos of themselves swinging that golf club, because apparently that golf club, the head of that golf club, is supposed to end up at the end of the swing at some precise point in space, sort of over your left ear, somewhere up in the air there. Now, the way I always saw this was that I don't understand what difference it makes where the golf club ends up. The bottom line is that once that golf club has struck the ball and the ball is flying down the fairway, who cares what the golf club does? It could dance an Irish jig on my nose, and it's not going to make the ball go anywhere else. So who cares about the end of the swing? All I should really care about is hitting the ball. But there's wisdom in golf, and that is that if you don't plan the end of the swing correctly, you won't hit the ball properly.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
If you plan your long-term life strategy on the wrong point, if your swing ends with a retirement, you're not going to hit the ball properly when you're 31 or 35 or 42.
Wow. Talking to Rabbi Daniel Lapin, Lapin. What is your website?
AncientJewishWisdom.com.
He is also, in addition to writing on various topics, and he's talked about retirement today. By the way, he is also, I want to go back to my by the way in just a minute, but he's also with the American Alliance of Jews and Christians. I don't know how many people I've met, and perhaps you guys have too, over the years, who've reached that, they finally get to that 65-year-old mark, and they've done well. All their their house is paid for, and they've saved a little nest egg,
right.
And they're ready to do
they got a house on the lake.
So they're ready to go,
right.
With retirement. And then they get 6 months, a year into it, and they go,
they're miserable.
I'm going nuts.
They're sitting here.
So they may not go back to work for an employer, but they want to find meaning and purpose in their day-to-day life, so they volunteer. their
Sure.
their time, for charities or for their church or whatever the case may be, because to Rabbi's point, we need something to give our lives
We were made
purpose.
to serve.
Made to serve. You've probably talked to a lot of people like that, haven't you, Rabbi?
Oh, very, very much so. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if somebody's been a successful entrepreneur,